Hey there everyone, my name is Brendan and welcome back to another cryptocurrency market update. And I'm not sure where to even begin today's video because there is so much happening in the world of cryptocurrency. But what I will say is that at the forefront of the news sector is XRP. Now, if you haven't seen the news already, XRP and Ripple have announced that they are going to be launching a stablecoin. And naturally, this has raised a lot of conversations and concerns and opinions as to not only why this is happening, but ultimately how this could impact the business model of Ripple and XRP, and also the price of the XRP token. Now, there's a lengthy article that we're going to be diving into in today's video, but of course, there's more happening just outside the world of XRP, right? I mean, we have JP Morgan reporting that crypto volumes have doubled last month over the course of March. We also see protocols like Solana and MakerDAO hitting all-time highs in revenue despite their market caps and their token price not being able to hit those yet. So we're going to talk about the correlation that's happening over there. And even in the macro markets, as we look at things like Bitcoin and Ethereum, prices are chopping around as we are only weeks before the halving. So there's a lot to unpack in today's market update. And all that we ask over here is that if you like the content that we make, consider hitting that like button, that subscribe button. And if you really like it, consider checking out the links in the description down below. You can also join one of our communities at Altcoin Alert or Crypt Nation as well there. So let's go ahead and kick things off with XRP, as that is probably one of the main reasons why you clicked on this video. What in the world is happening over here? And ultimately, is this a good or a bad thing for XRP? Well, XRP is announcing a stablecoin, and I know what you're thinking. XRP is already a stablecoin, right? No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. It's a joke. All the XRP people, stay out of the comments. But no, if we go over to XRP, you know, they're in a big lawsuit, or rather they're coming out of a big one. And if we look at the price of XRP, it has been a little bit more on the stable side over the past couple of months. And I think maybe range bound is a better word to describe this, as it has been sitting roughly in between this like 40 to 50 cent zone on the bottom side, and then on the top side a little bit closer to like 75 cents. And so what this actually creates over here is, again, roughly speaking, a little bit of a range of maybe like 50 to 60% where it's been chopping around in. Now, what I actually want to do here is, you know, again, shout out to CoinDesk for actually bringing this article to light. But I actually want to read through the entirety of this article because I thought it was really interesting. And I'll also, again, kind of have it linked up here, maybe in the description down below so that everyone else can read through it. But it's really cool because it actually interviews a lot of people who have been clients and partners, you know, people who are pro XRP, people who are, you know, con XRP. And it really shows all the different sides of the spectrum and what kind of could have led them to this business decision, right? So let's just start from the top over here. We're going to skip through like the intro part because it's just kind of giving us a little bit of banter about like, is XRP dead? Is it not dead? And get kind of right to the point over here. So the, main insertion is that this is going to be a stable coin that rivals something like USDT, which is Tether, or Circle's USDC stablecoin, which are two of the largest, most well-known, most used stablecoins on the market. And so let's just go ahead and begin here. So what they go off and start saying is that it's possible that facing as much as a $2 billion fine from the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, aka the SEC, that Ripple is looking for a new proven revenue source. Garlinghouse is apparently unfazed by the crowded competition, and he told CNBC that in the future of the stablecoin market, it's going to look different, certainly based on size. Now, in many ways, Ripple's existing business model selling financial services around its XRP ledger as well as on-demand liquidity in the RippleNet protocols is essentially falling short here. Now, although Ripple has seen some success forming partnerships, it seems increasingly clear that legitimate financial institutions do not want to take on the volatility of, you know, cryptocurrencies and the risks that they bring on without being pegged to some sort of other asset. And then it says, furthermore, over Ripple's decade-plus history, it often seemed better at building a community, aka the XRP army, and being a crypto, because taking the SEC to court is kind of a big task in and of itself, but it's been less successful at building products companies and individuals actually want to use. And again, don't come at me in the comments yet. We haven't finished the article. But let's continue this on. So there's a quote here saying, nobody's using XRP itself as a payment method, just like nobody is really using BTC, said a Columbia business professor. Now they go on to note here that this is a little bit of an over-exaggeration. Clearly, people are using both Bitcoin and XRP. But I think what he's trying to get the point that he's trying to get across here is that there is, a lack of using this as a payment method. Now, let's go ahead and continue on to the next part. So it says Diameter Pay CEO David Layton said that he partnered with Ripple on their early pilot experiment of XRapid, which was later rebranded as Ripple ODL, to send remittances between the US and Philippines. Well, he no longer uses that particular service. He does use the RippleNet messaging platform for some cross-bank transactions, which does not rely on XRP. Now, as we get into the bottom section over here, it says, another quote, Ripple has sort of a best-in-class data structure that most of the banks are kind of behind on, Layton said. It's a good product, but they don't really sell it that much anymore. And I think that they're sort of keeping it alive for their legacy clients, but it's not entirely clear to me as to why that is. So he said that he stopped using the ODL and that, he essentially left the network, and that, despite even using it, it doesn't really rely on the XRP token itself. Now, as we kind of get into the final part of this, it says that MoneyGram terminated the deal with Ripple, which invested $30 million in the remittance giant in 2019 to use RippleNet after a class action lawsuit was filed by the shareholders, alleging that MoneyGram should not have been aware that XRP could have been deemed a security, and thus it impacted MoneyGram's bottom line. And so there's lots of concerns going on saying, hey, this thing could be a security, it could not be a security, yada, yada, so on and so forth. But essentially, they are looking at a lawsuit, and they're also looking at a model that doesn't necessarily need XRP. In fact, the institutional clients that they have would much prefer something that is probably a little bit more stable than XRP. And so that is ultimately the bottom line here. And again, we'll have this probably linked down below for anybody who wants to really go through the entirety of this article. But I think that those are the important points, is kind of getting people who have used this thing, business leaders, partners, other leaders in the space, people who are kind of like directly tied to this stuff, and getting their opinion and their experience with it. And I think the big kind of takeaway that we're looking at here with XRP is that not only is XRP not directly needed and used for the services that are offered, but people are actually going around and using all the services without having to interact with XRP at all. And so what they're saying is why is this thing here? And we would much rather prefer something that is stable to kind of do these transactions, and then we might actually consider using it and having exposure to it. And that's just not something that a lot of these companies are exactly okay with at the moment. And so they're losing partnerships, and they lost other stuff. And it's not to say that they're a dead project. It's not to say that they are going under. It's nothing to that extreme. It's just, I think Ripple's kind of feeling out their target demographic and their target audience here, and they know that they can essentially get more action and activity and use and ultimately expand the project as a whole here by offering a stablecoin. I think it does fit their business model and the kind of stuff that they're doing, because what we've seen is that other networks, other financial institutions have said that it makes sense to have a stablecoin to do this stuff. And since XRP didn't have something like this and Stellar didn't have something like this, is that they were going over and they were doing it themselves. And so I think XRP is looking at this and saying, okay, if we don't add this, then a lot of the people that we're trying to service or our competitors are going to take market share away from us. They're going to build their own blockchains because it's super easy and cheap and affordable to do today. And especially when it comes to efficiency, they're all really fast now. And I think this is XRP kind of just getting with the times here. Now, does it mean that if they make a stablecoin that the price of XRP is dead? It does not. Now, if you know me, I'm not a giant fan of XRP. However, I think from a business standpoint, this can be an interesting thing. I think if you look at MakerDAO, which is one of the things that we brought up earlier, MakerDAO is a stablecoin, as well. And we know that they use both the they use the MakerDAO token and the DAI stablecoin, and the two kind of correlate in one another And I think that if XRP plays their cards right here, and if they try to do a similar approach to what MakerDAO is doing, I think that they could actually prime themselves for quite a bit of success. Now, it's all still super early. We don't know what they're going to do here. However, I think that XRP actually has a chance for the first time in a long time to pivot their business model to a more modern approach that appeals to more of their target demographic and investors. And they could actually put themselves in a prime position, add in some real world assets and tokenization of like traditional like financial models, things like bonds and securities and, other stuff like that. And before you know it, they're like an actual top tier competitor because they already have the market cap, they already have the reach, they already have a super big audience and army. And if they pivot this correctly here, they could actually be doing something super, super helpful. So I don't tend to talk about XRP a lot on the channel. However, I was reading through this, and although in the current business model, it does not fit my investment thesis, I think that they have the potential here to pivot into something really, really cool. We don't know if we'll see it. I have no exposure to XRP. So I'm not shilling it, but I think that this is at the forefront of news, and I think it's worth clarifying, what has happened, what is currently happening, and what could happen moving into the future, because this is a mainstream top 10 crypto by market cap that a lot of people pay attention to, and we're constantly getting questions about it over here on the crypto side of things, which kind of continues us into the next thing. Like, what about the crypto space as a whole over here? And what we've seen here in recent days is that the crypto markets have been chopping around the closer we get to the halving event, which is literally just like 2 to 3 weeks away now, which is wild to think about first and foremost. But as we kind of approach the halving, we saw that Bitcoin took a dip of around 18%. Then it bounced all the way back up about 17%. Now it's done another dip over here. It dropped another, and my tool's not working here, so bear with me. It dropped roughly another 10, 11%. Now we've bounced all the way from 64,000 back up to like 68,000, which is another 5%. And so the big kind of takeaway here is that the crypto market is chopping around sideways, and this is not anything out of the ordinary. In fact, we actually see this quite frequently going to the halving. But the big takeaways here is that Bitcoin is still holding higher swing lows. It's still holding the 50-day moving average here, and we saw ever since it broke and kind of pivoted. And so the overall uptrend is still very much intact. And the two main resistance levels that I'm looking at for Bitcoin to the upside are going to be right around 71.5K, and even beyond that around 74K, which is going to be the all-time high. Now, obviously, we have tons of layers of support below the current prices and lots of different areas that Bitcoin could fall down to. But I think so long as it holds the macro pattern of higher swing lows and the 50-day moving average, nothing's too scary. Now, if that breaks, we definitely have some room to the downside. But the overall macros of the market are still looking, pretty okay. It's not until something like this breaks that I'm really even sweating here. And we still see a lot of other like macro movements like the Solana ecosystem, the RWAs, tokenization, Base, a lot of that stuff still doing pretty hot. But the other thing that we're seeing here is that Bitcoin dominance has been actually breaking out. And this is because if we look at Bitcoin, for example, it's down maybe 1.5% on the day. Well, if we go and we look at Stacks, down 5%, Optimism, 6%, IMX, 4.5%, Chainlink, 2.5%, Axelar, 10%, Arrow, 5%. The list goes on, right? Goldfinch, 6%. And so I say this because altcoins are getting hit harder than Bitcoin here, which has ultimately been making Bitcoin rise in dominance. So we've seen crypto volumes double. And this is actually really cool because, myself and Bryce, who a lot of you are familiar with, had an awesome conversation when we interviewed the CIO of Bitwise, one of the ETF providers for Bitcoin, earlier this week. And when it comes to the topic of volumes, first and foremost, we're going to have a podcast coming out in about a week or two where we released the conversation that we had with the Bitwise CIO. So keep an eye on the Crypto 101 channel, or rather the Crypto 101 podcast channel on like YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Audible, etc., where you're going to be able to get to see that full episode. But one of the things that he mentioned to us over there is his biggest takeaways from the current state of the ETFs. And one of the things that he mentioned was that he expects there to be a total inflow of like $50 billion by the end of this year, which would mean that we've only seen about like a quarter of that. So he's expecting about a 300 to 400% increase in volume over the remainder of this year beyond what we've seen already. So I think we've seen around maybe 12 billion, maybe 14 billion. And he's expecting it to be roughly 50 billion by the end of this year. So not only is crypto volume increasing, but it looks like it will stay on that path, especially if his prediction, comes out to be true. Now, another cool thing that we kind of alluded to earlier in the video is that other protocols are seeing all-time highs, and if not multi-year highs, in terms of revenue. Solana and MakerDAO are both great examples of this. Solana and MakerDAO, as you can see from the top chart over here in the image above, that their revenue is just sky high, and it's been going sky high since the beginning of last year. It's just been higher and higher and higher and higher and climbing this chart to a point now where Maker's at all-time highs in revenue. We have Solana kind of at the same place, and these two projects do very different things. Some people might argue that Solana's at all-time highs in revenue because of everything that's happening with meme coins, but then again, Maker doesn't deal anything with meme coins, and it's at all-time highs in revenue. And so we're seeing crypto projects become very legitimate, very effective, and accomplish their long-term goals here of creating these highly profitable business models. And that's exactly what they're doing. And the kind of cool thing here is that their market caps and their token prices haven't caught up yet. And so when we look at like the revenue as it relates to token price, you would imagine that the two have some sort of a correlation, just like if you're looking at the profitability of like a stock, for example, and you're saying, hey, this project or this stock, right? This company is now more profitable than it's ever been, but its stock is still down, 30% from its all-time high. You're probably looking at that saying, hey, if this trend continues, it's likely that it'll break an all-time high so long as they continue to be, more and more and more profitable. And so that's kind of like one of the things that I'm looking at. And it goes beyond just Solana and MakerDAO here, right? There's a lot of other projects that are in a very, very similar boat. And it's one of the metrics that I'm paying a lot of attention to as we kind of continue into the remainder of this year here. Now, I know we had an action-packed episode today. I think I'm going to wrap us up there, give everyone a little bit of time to process everything that we talked about, as it was a little bit of a longer video. But again, everyone, if you like the content that we make and you want to get more plugged in, definitely check out the links in the description down below. You can find us at Crypt Nation. You can find us at Altcoin Alert. And you can get plugged in and check out the podcast as well at the Crypto 101 podcast. Now, that's going to go ahead and wrap us up. Thank you all for watching. If you want to see more content, again, smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, and I'll see all of you in next week's video.